My name is Nathan Cole, and for most of my life, my family treated me like I was optional. Not unwanted, not exactly unloved, just replaceable. I grew up in a quiet Midwestern town where last names mattered more than first impressions, and family reputation carried more weight than truth. The kind of place where people smiled politely while silently ranking you against everyone else. In our family, my younger brother Ethan was the center of gravity. Everything bent toward him. Teachers praised him before he earned it. Relatives laughed louder at his jokes. My parents spoke his name like it carried promise. I was the contrast, the one who followed rules, the one who didn't embarrass them, the one who stayed quiet so others could shine. My mother used to say, "Nathan is dependable. Ethan is destined." Dependable sounded a lot like invisible. From childhood, expectations were split cleanly in two. If Ethan failed, he was still learning. If I failed, I was wasting potential. If Ethan succeeded, the house celebrated. If I succeeded, the moment passed quietly, like a polite cough. I learned early not to complain. Complaints made things worse. So I did what invisible kids do best. I worked. I studied harder, stayed later, watched everything. While Ethan chased attention, I chased stability. I went to a state university on scholarships and part-time jobs. I studied finance and risk management, not because it was glamorous, but because I understood systems. Numbers didn't lie. They didn't play favorites. They rewarded patience and discipline. My parents barely noticed when I graduated. They were too busy helping Ethan explore his options. He tried music, then marketing, then entrepreneurship. Each attempt funded, encouraged, defended. Every failure explained away. After college, I moved to Chicago and took an entry-level job at a risk consulting firm. Long hours, dry work, no applause. I loved it. I learned how money moved, how people hid mistakes, how confidence could mask incompetence. I watched companies rise and collapse not because of bad ideas, but because of unchecked ego. I didn't talk about my work when I visited home. No one asked. Ethan, meanwhile, stayed in our hometown and became a local legend, not for success, but for ambition. He talked big, promised bigger. Everyone believed him because he sounded like someone worth believing. My parents supported him endlessly. New cars when his ventures almost worked, loans quietly forgiven, connections pulled. They called it love. I called it blindness. By my early 30s, I had crossed a line I never expected. 8 figures. Not overnight, not from luck. Years of discipline, calculated risks, and knowing when to walk away. I owned equity in 3 firms, sat on advisory boards. My net worth crossed $21 million, quietly, without a single family member knowing. And I planned to keep it that way, until Thanksgiving. We gathered at my parents' house, the same dining room where I'd spent years eating quietly while Ethan dominated conversations. This year was different. Ethan arrived late, wearing confidence like armor. He talked non-stop about a new venture, a private investment group he claimed was about to explode. My mother watched him like a proud spectator. My father nodded silently, as always. Then my mother turned to me. "So, Nathan," she said, her tone sharp and dismissive, "still doing that number stuff?" The table chuckled. Something in me snapped. Not anger, fatigue. I was tired of shrinking. I set my glass down carefully. "Actually," I said calmly, "I manage assets now." Ethan smirked. "Assets?" he repeated. "Like spreadsheets?" I looked at him. "No," I said, "like companies." The room quieted slightly. I didn't raise my voice. "I crossed 20 million this year. Personal net worth." Silence fell like a dropped plate. My mother froze mid-breath. My father stared at his hands. My aunt blinked, confused. Ethan laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "Ha, good one. Seriously, Nathan, that's funny." I didn't smile. "It's not a joke." That's when everything changed. Ethan stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "That's impossible," he snapped. "You're lying." My mother jumped in immediately. "Nathan, don't say things like that," she scolded. "It's inappropriate." Inappropriate. Not untrue, just inconvenient. "I can show you statements," I said calmly. Ethan's face darkened. "You think you're better than me now?" he shouted. "After everything we've done for you?" I almost laughed. Everything they had done for me. My father finally spoke, his voice low. "Let's calm down." But it was too late. Something ugly had been exposed. That night ended cold. No apologies, no congratulations, just tension. I drove back to Chicago knowing one thing for certain. They would not let this go. They never did. And I had no idea how far they were willing to go to take what I had built.
I knew they wouldn't let it go. Families like mine never do. They don't confront success. They reframe it. They don't celebrate it. They claim it. The week after Thanksgiving, my phone started lighting up in ways it never had before. First, it was my mother. Short messages, casual tone. "Hope you're okay. Your father worries. We should talk soon." No congratulations, no curiosity, just positioning. Then came Ethan. Different style. Confident, friendly, familiar. "Bro, I've been thinking. You and I should finally work together. Family plus money is unstoppable." I didn't respond. Silence has always been my strongest boundary. But silence makes insecure people reckless. 2 days later, my father called. He rarely called. When he did, it meant pressure was coming. "Nathan," he said carefully, like he was stepping around glass, "your brother is under a lot of stress." I leaned back in my chair, watching the Chicago skyline outside my office window. "What kind of stress?" I asked. "He's got people depending on him. Expectations." I almost smiled. Expectations were only ever dangerous when they belonged to Ethan. "And what does that have to do with me?" I asked. A pause. "Well," he said, "you have resources now." There it was. Not pride, not concern. Utility. I earned those resources. Alone. My father sighed. "We're just asking you to consider helping, just temporarily, to stabilize things." "No," I said. Not loudly, not angrily, just clearly. He didn't argue. He didn't have to, because my mother took over. Her messages became sharper. "You're being selfish. Money changes people. Your brother would help you." That last one made me laugh out loud. Would he? He'd never even noticed me. A week later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Ethan had been talking. A lot. At business mixers, at charity events, at places where confidence passed for credibility. He was telling people we were partners, not officially, just implied. "My brother's backing me. He doesn't like attention, but he believes in this." At first, I didn't take it seriously. Then an email arrived. Subject line, "Follow up on Cole Capital Group." I stared at the screen. Cole Capital Group? I opened it. The sender was a private investor out of Indianapolis. The message was polite, professional, and deeply alarming. He thanked me for my interest in reference to conversation Ethan had apparently had with him, one where my name was mentioned as a silent financial anchor. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I replied immediately, "There's been a misunderstanding. I'm not involved in this venture." The response came quickly. Confused, he attached a document, a pitch deck, with my name on it, not as a founder, not as a spokesperson, as a financial guarantor. My net worth was referenced, rounded up, inflated, used. I called Ethan, straight to voicemail. I called my mother. She answered immediately. "What is this?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Why is my name in Ethan's materials?" She didn't hesitate. "Oh, that," she said lightly. "It's just to give people confidence." Confidence, at my expense. "You had no right," I said. "He's your brother," she replied sharply. "This family raised you. You owe us." That word, owe. I hung up. That night I barely slept. Not from fear, from clarity. They weren't asking anymore. They were using. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched it escalate. Emails, introductions, assumptions. People reaching out to me to confirm things I had never agreed to. Each message chipped away at something I had spent decades protecting, my reputation. I contacted a lawyer, quietly, methodically. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, "This is dangerous. Not morally, legally. If investors believe you're backing this and it collapses, they'll come after you." I forwarded everything, every message, every document, every implied promise. She asked one question. "Did you ever explicitly deny this in writing?" I nodded. "Yes." She said, "Good. That's your shield. But shields only work if you use them." I gave Ethan one last chance. I sent a single message. "Remove my name from everything, immediately. This is your final warning." He responded an hour later. Casual, confident. "Relax, you're overreacting. This helps both of us." That was the moment I realized something else. He didn't believe I'd stop him, because no one ever had. I went home for the first time since Thanksgiving. Not for dinner, for confrontation. The house looked the same. Warm lights, familiar smells, false comfort. Ethan was there, sitting at the table like he owned it. My mother hovered nearby. My father stayed quiet, always quiet. I didn't sit. I placed printed documents on the table. "Take my name off," I said. Ethan scoffed. "You're making this dramatic." I slid the papers closer. "Forgery," I said calmly. "Misrepresentation. Fraud." My mother snapped. "Don't use those words." "They're accurate," I replied. Ethan stood. "You wouldn't dare," he said. I looked him in the eye. "I already have." The room shifted. For the first time, uncertainty cracked his confidence. "What did you do?" my mother asked sharply. "I protected myself," I said. My father finally spoke. "Nathan," he said quietly, "this will destroy your brother." I turned to him. "No," I said, "his choices will." Silence followed. Heavy, uncomfortable. I gathered my papers. "This ends now, or it ends publicly." Ethan stared at me, jaw tight. "You think money makes you powerful," he said bitterly. "No," I replied. "Clarity does." I left without another word. 3 days later, the first investor pulled out. Then another. Then another. Word spread. Not gossip. Facts. Questions Ethan couldn't answer. My phone stayed quiet. I didn't reach out. I didn't need to, because I knew what was coming next. Desperation. And desperate people never go quietly.
Desperation doesn't arrive loudly. It creeps in through smaller moves. More calls, more promises, more lies told faster than they can be controlled.
After investors began pulling out, Ethan stopped pretending everything was fine. The confidence cracked. First, he tried charm. He sent a long message late one night, the kind written after a few drinks and too much ego. "Nathan, I know things got tense, but this doesn't have to be a war. We're brothers. We can fix this quietly." Quietly. That word again. Quietly had always meant at my expense. I didn't reply. The next day, my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not weaker, just exposed. She stood in my doorway, arms crossed, eyes already defensive. "You embarrassed us," she said without greeting. I stepped aside and let her in. She didn't sit. "You humiliated your brother. People are talking." I nodded. They should. Her face tightened. "You've always been jealous of him." That sentence, I'd heard it my entire life. I took a breath. "I wasn't jealous," I replied calmly. "I was invisible." She scoffed. "That's dramatic." "No," I replied. "It's accurate." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You have more than enough. Why do you need to take this from him?" I looked at her. I didn't take anything. I stopped him from taking from me. Silence hung between us. Then came the final tactic. Guilt. "He's falling apart," she said softly. "He can't sleep. He feels betrayed." I felt something stir in my chest. Not pity. Recognition. "That's how I felt for years, and you never noticed." She turned away. "I raised you both. You're supposed to support family." I walked to the door and opened it. "Family doesn't use your name to lie. This conversation is over." She stared at me, stunned. Then she left. 2 weeks later, the investigation began. Not criminal yet, but regulatory. An ethics review into misrepresentation. Emails were subpoenaed. Pitch decks examined. Statements compared. Ethan called me once more. This time, there was no arrogance left. His voice shook. "They're saying I misled people, that I forged documents." I didn't respond immediately. Then I said, "Did you?" He exhaled. "You knew what I meant," he said quietly. "Yes, I did." Another pause. "You could stop this," he said. "You could tell them it was a misunderstanding." I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "I won't lie to protect you." His voice cracked. "You're really going to let this happen?" I answered honestly. "I already did." The call ended. After that, things unraveled quickly. Sponsors backed out. Advisors resigned. Local business forums turned cold. Ethan became a warning story. Not because of one mistake, but because of how many chances he'd been given. My father called once. His voice was tired. "I should have said something sooner," he admitted. "Yes," I said. That was all. He didn't argue. He didn't apologize again. He knew words wouldn't repair what silence had allowed. I didn't cut him off completely, but I didn't reach out either. Some bridges don't burn. They erode. Quietly. By spring, Ethan's company dissolved. No announcement. No apology. Just absence. He moved away. No one was sure where. My mother stopped calling. She told relatives I had changed. She was right. I had. But not in the way she meant. I hadn't become cold. I'd become clear. Work flourished, not because of revenge, because I could finally focus. I expanded my advisory role, took on new partnerships, built something intentional. Money continued to grow, but it wasn't the number that mattered anymore. It was ownership of my name, of my choices, of my boundaries. One evening, months later, I stood on my balcony overlooking the city. Lights stretched endlessly, each one someone else's story. I thought about the kid I used to be, quiet, dependable, replaceable. I wished I could tell him something. Not that he'd be rich, not that he'd win, but that one day he'd stop shrinking. Family doesn't define your worth. Blood doesn't entitle anyone to your labor. And silence, when chosen, is power. I didn't destroy my family. I stopped letting them destroy me. And that difference is everything.